it's Tori, and today we're going to be doing a science experiment using the snow that's outside right now. This is Maple. She's my scientific intern who has to be here because she gets very upset when I do things without her. The only supplies that you'll need for this experiment are either 3 equally sized mason jars with lids or 3 equally sized containers with lids. They need to be equally sized. For this experiment, we'll need to go over the scientific method. The scientific method has 6 parts. The first part is making observations. The second part is forming questions. The third part is developing a hypothesis. The fourth part is testing the hypothesis. The fifth part is recording the results. And the sixth part is sharing the results. There are some big words in there. Do you know what a hypothesis is? A hypothesis is a guess, but it's a guess that's made with some knowledge behind it. One thing that's important for conducting an experiment is that you need to have a control value. That means something that you can measure your results against. In this experiment, our unchanging control will be 1 container filled all the way up with water. Let's start with making observations. We know that ice is just frozen water, and we know that snow is some type of frozen, slushy, soft ice. Now we can form our question. The question for this experiment will be, what has more water, ice or snow? Now we can develop our hypothesis or our educated guess. My guess is that the snow will have the most amount of water because I'm going to pack it very tightly. What do you think will have the most amount of water? Now let's test our guess. The first step of our experiment is to create our control. I'm going to take one of my mason jars and I'm going to fill it all the way up with water, and then I'll close it. Here's my container of water. I'm going to set it down. The next step of our experiment is to fill another container that's the same size all the way up with ice cubes. I've now filled my container of ice. The ice is all the way up to the top, and now I'll set it down. Make sure that you use ice cubes. Now it's time to gather our snow. You want to make sure that you pack it in there. Jam as much snow as you can inside your container. You also want to make sure that you're grabbing snow and not the layer of ice that sometimes gets on top of the snow. It should be pretty soft. I'm ready to gather my snow. Make sure you wear gloves. Someone tell Maple it's not very professional to eat your experiment. Now that we've gathered our snow, I put my lid on it. I'm now going to place my containers of snow, ice, and water next to each other and wait for them all to melt to get my results. Okay, so it's been about 7 hours and we have our results. As you saw in the time lapse, the container with ice had a little bit more water in it than the snow, even though we packed the snow in very tightly. This is the part in the scientific method where we record our results, which are that the ice had more water in it than the snow. Now we can move on to sharing our results. There is a reason that there was more water in the ice container than the snow container, despite the fact that we put way more snow in the container. Ice is the solid form of water, and when water is in its solid form, the water molecules that make up the ice are stacked together very tightly. Snow is a lot like ice, but it's actually frozen precipitation, and when it freezes, it's in a very crystallized pattern, which is what we call a snowflake. While we see a lot of space in between each ice cube, there's actually more space in the snow container because there's so much space in between each little snowflake. And no matter how tightly we packed the snow in there, we could never pack it in as tightly as the water molecules are packed in solid ice. So what was your guess? Did you guess that there would actually be more water in the ice than the snow? Was your guess correct? And lastly, I'm just comparing our control, which was our full container of water, with our ice. And while there was much more water in the ice than there was in the snow. There's still nowhere near as much water as there was when we just filled the whole container up with water. Okay, I hope you had fun doing this experiment, and I hope you had a new reason to go out in the snow today. Bye, see you next time.